So this is the Tune Beam and 245 NC. Now, one of these are actually, because I really can't tell the difference between these two. So much so, I think I did get them mixed up, because even the rear of the case is exactly the same. They've got both JBL Tune written at the back, and even the earphones look absolutely identical. But more than the design, I think there is a very slight difference when it comes to its sound. The design is practically identical, so much so that, like I said, I didn't know which one was which. So coming to the build of these earphones, well, you can pop both of these open and they will look exactly the same. They look absolutely identical, so much so you can put these earphones into this case and vice versa. Now, usually that's not possible with newer iterations of products, but there you go. It's practically the same case as far as I know, and even the design of the earphones are also quite identical. And they all, well, all of these have the same sort of matte finish with the JBL branding on it and that little LED light over there. These are pretty identical in absolutely every way. Even the LEDs, the way they sort of glow and pulsate whenever you plug them into charge, absolutely identical. So on a build front, I think you can expect the same thing from both of these. In fact, I think if you compare these to the 230 NC, if you're coming from the 230 NC, there was a difference. The case was a little bit different. I think the styling of the earphone was a little bit different. It definitely wouldn't sit into these cases, but there you have it. There is the slight difference between that generation and these two, but these are pretty identical. Moving on to the features, these are still pretty identical on this front, even when it comes to the app. So I'll just walk you through the app pretty quick. This time with the Tune 245 NC, and I've gone between the two and they look pretty similar. So I'll walk you through it. You can see the battery levels on the earphones and the case, of course. The case's battery charge usually shows up when both earphones are in the case. And then, of course, you can toggle your ambient sound control on and off. So you have ANC. Right now, it will not switch on because it's in the case. Then you can go to your ambient aware, which lets in some, feedback noise whenever you're going for a walk or a run, which is cool. And talk through mode usually activates when you, of course, you have to switch it on, you have to toggle to it from the app or from the earphone, and it'll let in, the person who's conversing with you close by, their voice will feed in much more prominently. And one thing talk through mode does is it does reduce your media volume significantly. So you can increase and reduce your volume as much as you want, but it will push your media volume down as low as possible so you can have that conversation. Moving on, you do get the equalizer option, of course. Now you can toggle between these through a few modes. You can sort of tweak it a bit yourself manually if you'd like to, which is a cool thing to do. I do have a walkthrough as to how to tune your earphones, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave it in the description below. Then, of course, you do have this gesture option, which you can choose, go into and sort of customize the few things you want to control on left or right buds. It's kind of locked into what you can do. Like you can control either the ambient control, volume, playback, or none. And likewise with the left. So you will be locked into that mode specifically once you choose it. And voice aware is, of course, a very cool feature to have when you're on phone calls, because when that is activated and you're on a call, it does feed in your own voice to you, which is a nice touch, of course. I've only seen JBL do this. Then your smart audio and video, of course, will ensure that it plays the highest quality codec for audio and your quickest latency when it comes to smart video. Left and right sound balance control is always a nice thing to have in case you want to play around with that. Voice assistant support does have Google Assistant and your native one that you can choose from, which is also neat. And then, of course, the voice prompts have recently been updated, specifically the English language. I just updated it. There was some Google Voice Assistant update, which it does support now. The max volume limiter I like, because a lot of people tend to go way beyond the safe limit for listening, whereas this kind of culls that. It controls it at about, I think, 85 dB. At about 85 dB to protect your hearing. And of course, what's cool is it does have Find My Buds. Now, this does apply to both earphones, if I'm not mistaken. And then of course, you do have your power saving modes, which you can choose from, and your support options to see all your details and all that sort of stuff. So there you have it. On a feature front, they're both pretty similar. They're practically identical. And then moving on, both of these do have active noise cancelling, and I find the active noise cancelling to be very similar. They're almost the same product. I mean, bushing of fan blades, fan motor noises, AC motor noises, engine noises, from the main road close to my place, or even if you're flying with these, both of these are very good performers when it does come to that. So again, they are very similar on the ANC front. Now, speaking about ANC, these do have microphones that help with those, with the active noise cancelling, which also help with the environmental noise cancelling if you do want to make any phone calls. So if you do want to see how these would perform in a busy setting and see if there really is a difference between the two, here's a quick test for you to decide which one you think is better.
So I'm calling from the usual busy street I do all of my call tests from, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of two-wheelers, four-wheelers. You will get three-wheelers and maybe some trucks blowing their pressure horn as well. There is some noise coming from a construction site that's just across the road, so that might also come through. And of course, both these earphones have a lot to battle with when it comes to their environmental noise cancelling, of course. So I have been on the camera microphone all this time to give you a sense of the ambient noise all around me. And I'll switch over to the JBL Tune Beam microphones right about
now. So this is overall, the older set of earphones, of course. So I do presume that this may not have as an advanced algorithm as the 245 NC, but considering the NC is, newer, maybe slightly improved, I do suspect there to be a slight difference. But you are sitting in the reviewer seat to see whether or not there is that difference. So of course, this has been the JBL Tune Beam, and I'll switch over to the 245 NC right about now. So this is the overall performance you can expect from the 245. Now I'm not listening to this in real time, but you are listening to the comparison back to back between the Tune Beam and the 245. So you are sitting in the best seat to see what the differences are between the two, with its environmental, its overall tonal quality being carried over to you as the recipient. So this is pretty much how your recipients will hear you in this kind of setting. No doubt, both these earphones will perform significantly better in more controlled environments like in office or at home where there's not so much noise. But this is, of course, the worst kind of situation you can sort of take a call in, of course. So anyway, there you have it. That's the demo between the Tune Beam and the 245 NC. And I do hope it's given you a better understanding for these earphones. And I'll see you back at the studio.
On a battery front, these do have the same claims in specifications, so again, expect them to last around the same time between one another. Now, since the size of these earphones and case is the same, I'm pretty sure the performance between the two will also be very similar. Both these are fairly fresh, and not the Beam though. The Beam would have degraded over time. I've had it for some time now. The older these products get, don't expect them to last the same amount of, if somebody claims 10 hours on earphones alone, don't expect the same results in 6, 8, 10 or even 12 months, because these little cells do degrade over time, and it is to be expected from anything that has a little battery in it. Now, moving on to the sound. Well, when it comes to the sound, there is a very slight difference between these two. They have the same driver size. I think the enclosures are practically identical at the same time. But I did find the Tune Beam to sound very slightly flatter sounding than the 245 NC. The 245 seems to be a little chirpier, or should I say a little crispier when it comes to its overall detail sort of performance. So with all the detail that's coming at you from the 245, it's no slouch, and neither is it from the Tune Beam, but it's ever so slightly sharper. It's ever so slightly trying to be a little more clear in its overall approach. Even when it comes to their volume performance, they're practically identical. I found myself listening to them at about 50% volume. They both sound pretty similar at that output. I do push them up to about 60% volume for a little more fun, but it starts to get a little too loud for me beyond that point. So if you intend on preserving your ears and your hearing, I wouldn't recommend going beyond 60% volume over prolonged periods of time, but you do have that maximum volume limiter which will cap it at 85 decibels. So keep that on if you are worried about your ears, of course. But both of these are not exactly the loudest sounding set of earphones I've heard. I remember the 230 NC being particularly louder than the Beam, which will obviously also apply to the 245. Now, the 230 had its own series of little glitches and issues with it, which is why I think the newer iterations have come out. But coming back to the sound, the bass on both of these is similar, but I think the 45 has got a little more accentuation, maybe in the sub lows. I'm talking about ever so slightly, and then the mid-range on both is recessed with tweaked highs. The highs are not shrill. They are both of these pleasant on the ear. Now, both of these are going to be following some sort of Harman target or Harman curve, so they are both very enjoyable to listen to. But the main difference, I'd say, is in the imaging. The sharpness of the detail is very different. And only if you're really properly focusing and listening can you hear those out when you're doing so a little bit of A/B testing. But I think most people won't be bothered about that much of a difference. So again, they are very similar earphones on many fronts. So coming to why I think both of these earphones still exist now, the 245 is definitely, I think, a newer model from JBL, the Tune Beam being a bit older. But I do remember the 230. In fact, when I did review it, I did like it. I did prefer it to some other earphones that I had in the same price range. But the 230 in particular, I remember I had a slew of comments from a lot of people saying, I've had charging issues with this. There have been a lot of glitches with it. One earphone's given up. It's not charging. I don't know what to do. So as far as I know, the Tune Beam, when that was launched, the JBL did try and sort out that issue with that piece of hardware. Now, I have not had many complaints about the Tune Beam, at least in my comments, but I have had some, and some of them have said the very same thing, which is, one of my earbuds is not charging, the other one is fine, and there's been a much smaller amount of people who've come and said anything about that. So I suspect the 245 to be the next iteration. They've obviously tried to figure out the problem with this, because I know for a fact that they have replaced some people's 230 NCs with the Tune Beam, which is of course a very nice gesture to do from their side. But I think the 245 has stepped in to sort of do pretty much that in case there are problems with the Tune Beam. But obviously these issues have been in specific batches. Not everybody has had this issue. But I mean, there you have it. Both of these are nice earphones. They are definitely nice to have. Don't hold on to a set of wireless earphones for a year and say, the battery is giving up and so on. If it's under warranty, claim it. But don't wait for beyond a year out of the warranty to say that, listen, the brand isn't replacing my unit. You'll have to be proactive as a consumer with your own product to make sure that you catch it in time and say, listen, this is the issue. And JBL will, of course, support you there as far as I know. So anyway, moving on to the prices of these. If you don't want to make either of these yours, the Tune 45 NC has an MRP of 8,999 rupees, but it does have a selling price of 4,999 as per the time of recording this video on the JBL website. But I have also seen it on Amazon for 3,999 rupees. And the Tune Beam has an MRP of 7,999 rupees, but it has a selling price on the JBL website of 4,499, and it has the same selling price on Amazon India as well. If I had to choose between one or the other, I'd most likely lean more toward the Beam. I have spent a lot of time with the Beam. I do like the Beam a lot. I really like how it sounds. It's not, that little bit of not being too aggressive in the detail. I do like it's softer, it's slightly more musical sounding. It's not as emphatic in the bass. Very subtle differences. It sounds like there is a very slight difference in tuning between both of these earphones, but I would prefer the Tune over the 245 NC anyway. But anyway, there you have it. That's been my quick review on these. I will leave my in-depth review on the Tune down below. You can check it out if you'd like to, of course. And if you missed out on that call chapter, head on back to that chapter and see if which one's earphone you think, which one's microphones sound different, and let me know in the comments below as to what you think. So there you have it. That's been my quick comparison between these two earphones, and I do hope that I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. And of course, if you would like to help support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Pulse POV for some sound advice.